discussion, and again, thanks for your time. We are looking to share your real life experiences. This is not a Gyan session, so feel free to just speak your mind and speak about your experiences, which is where the gain for the audience would come. So, when we were researching into various organizations that have implemented successful CSR sustainability programs, we stumbled across one very distinct leading automaker from Europe. Not wanting to mention their name at this stage, 6 years back, this automaker, I think many of us are users of that automaker, it's a European automaker, was lagging very badly in terms of market cap and in terms of profitability and in terms of growth. And their CEO took a stance. The CEO took a stance saying, unless I'm going to identify what are the 6 KPIs across 4 different tracks and identify 12 goals aligned to sustainability, unless I make that a culture in my company, to the earlier discussion that Sunil had, when he was basically saying innovation is a culture, I'm like sitting here saying, oh, sustainability is a culture, but unless it was made a culture, and unless it was tied back to business imperatives, they were never ever going to reinvent themselves. Voila, result after 6 years, market cap has more than doubled, profitability has gone up, market share has increased, and more importantly, they are coming up with sustainability related innovation in the space of automotive, including EV and beyond every year. So Vijay, I would like to ask you the first question. If you were a CEO, and if you were to redefine your organization, what do you think is a CEO imperative in terms of bringing sustainability as part of your core business imperative and not just a CSR initiative?
Thank you, Madhavan, for this. I think one of the key things that we need to keep in mind from a CEO perspective is that in today's time, it's not about ensuring that your organization's top line, bottom line grows, but it is about triple bottom line. And the moment you talk about triple bottom line, when it really comes up as perhaps the first one, and then people, and then I'll put profit in that sequence. So sustainability has to be a major part. From an automotive perspective, yes, automotives do contribute a lot to the entire pollution all over, and it's really important that organizations, they do something to reduce the pollution, number one. And second is, whatever they can't reduce, at least offset the entire thing by doing whatever they need to do to ensure that the cities become cleaner, the entire society becomes cleaner, and they really, all of us really don't leave a world which is worse than whatever we have inherited. So it's really important, and as CEO I would have said that first planet, then people, then come to profit. So sustainability has to be right on the top over there. And maybe I'll just take 2 more minutes on from a sustainability perspective what I was doing earlier in my life. So we know that two-wheelers and contribute a lot to this, whether it is the PM or NOx or everything. So what we did, I'll just give you 2 small initiatives that we did in the last couple of years. We planted, so I personally led plantation of roughly around 25 lakh trees to ensure that that thing is offset. And second was, which EV also plays a major role, is ensuring that the energy consumption really goes down. So in the hills of Uttarakhand, we changed all these bulbs of so many villages, the normal lamps to LED lamps, CFL lamps. And we saved or continue to save 3 crore units of electricity every year, and where the Uttarakhand government formally, so it's not a number which is out of thin air, but Uttarakhand government did a formal study, their department, and said that these initiatives. So yeah, objective is, can we really not just do, as you rightly said, within the boundaries of our organization, but can we go beyond and build a culture where we involve our families, we involve the extended ecosystem, to ensure that it becomes a culture movement, I'll say, even beyond the culture part, so that everyone contributes. So that's how. And auto industry really has to kind of take a major leap in that.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Vijay. That was very insightful. To your point, how do we take it beyond the boundaries, and how do we actually, sometimes it's not just related to business, but it has an indirect way of contributing back to your business, to the example of the Uttarakhand that you took, actually, right? So that's a very important aspect. The aspect of, and this is a space where we are connecting deep tech startups with enterprises. And when you think about deep tech startups, the first thing that comes into your mind is entrepreneurship. And there is a recent study by Linnaeus University, which researched between the number of initiatives and number of ideas and innovations that have come from the entrepreneurial world so into the sustainability area. So there's a very deep link between sustainability and entrepreneurship. While we'll come to the skill development part of it, I would like to hear from you, Ms. Chhaya. You've been at the forefront of infusing entrepreneurial approach, right? Whether it is larger organizations or smaller entrepreneurs themselves, mentoring them on ESG principles through your winning edge. And you've also been interacting a lot with the entrepreneurs, and it's important to imbibe that, culture into them right up front. In your mind, what would be the way to infuse the entrepreneurial approach to larger enterprises and the smaller ones back into the sustainability goals? So we start creating and redesigning a very different sustainable future as a norm.
So thank you, Madhavan. Thank you, Sandy and Ash, for having me over here. Hearty congratulations for whatever you people are doing, and I feel mighty proud of both of you. It's beautiful. You see, a set of my students are already doing something very entrepreneurial to make this world more sustainable. And of course, I can speak with the example over there. So I'm feeling very happy, very proud to be a part of this summit. And if as a teacher, as a mentor, and as a coach, whatever I have been doing for the last, say, 26, 30 years, what I try to do when I'm with them in terms of giving them the inputs to think, because the job of a mentor or a teacher is to push thinking in your mentee and in your student. If I'm going to give them assignments, handouts, then I'm equivalent of Google. Today, I don't have to do that. Job of mine is to push them into thinking, and therefore the relationship between the mentee and the mentor has to be led by the mentee and not by me. This has been my very humble learning and teaching and mentoring. I have to match their pace. I have to understand their needs. Then I have to understand where they are not able to visualize. And I have not to feel arrogant about it, because obviously I am the teacher and they are the students. So they are not going to be able to see what I am able to see. But then, as Vivekananda very famously said, that the real intelligent is the one who lifts the other person without making him or her feel that he or she is inadequate in something, is what is the mentor's job. And that is what I have been trying to do. And in that, I think a lot of reverse mentoring has happened to me, and I have ended up learning a lot. I know very little about deep tech, but probably I know a lot about deep learning by now after teaching for 30 years. So with that kind of a background, now let me tell you the connection between the entrepreneurship, sustainability, and the mentoring. Entrepreneurship word has come from a French word called entreprendre. What it means is starting or initiating something. It could be anything, like Mr. Lulla said in the earlier, module. Giving birth to a child is an act of entrepreneurship, because you are initiating something. It is one of the projects on Mother Earth, right? And that every species does it. So when you start something, it is called entrepreneurship. Now, if you track the progress of mankind and humanity, all the progress in this world and in this universe has happened because of entrepreneurs. Because entrepreneurs have always attempted to find solution to a problem that they face. Simple thing like we read about Red Bus. The fellow couldn't get a ticket to go home, and so he said, okay, I'm going to have a Red Bus. Okay, I underwent 3 surgeries, and I'm connected with a startup called RG Care in Thane. This man came from US, and while he was in US, he couldn't take care of his ailing parents over here effectively. So he came back and he started a startup called RG Care to take care of the elderly. So entrepreneurship has always been focused on finding solutions. Having said that, what happened over these few years, say hundreds of years, is that all the progress which was intended for the human good ended up making humanity used to convenience, comfort, and laziness. And that is where this progress turned upside down, and then it started damaging the environment, it started damaging the society, and now it is threatening our very existence. So now what is the problem area? The problem area is to save ourselves. The problem area is to make sure that whatever damage we did to environment, so let us try to mitigate that. Problem area is what? The society. Society is suffering. I mean, there are so many mental and physical issues. After COVID, how many viruses have come? There are, there are wars happening everywhere, right? There are mental illnesses, moonlighting, quiet quitting. I mean, there are just 2% of the corporates who have been able to achieve their sustainability goals. There is a huge issue. And governance, ethics, it is at all-time low, I'm so sorry to say, but that is where we are. And it pains all of us, and we want to find a solution. So obviously now, the entrepreneurship is all about finding solution to it, taking one full circle 360 degrees and going back to a place where once upon a time we revered the environment, we revered the society, we revered our elders, and before we did something, we thought first, we are not harming anybody and we are not doing it in any wrong way, right? And if you look at the startups today, all the startups are engaged exactly in trying to do that. Whether it is edtech, whether it is health and technology, okay, whether it is for the agriculture, because all the wars are happening due to food and water scarcity, or whether it is about the irrigation, or whether it is about anything you think of, the startups are basically there in that. So you see, the entrepreneurship, human problem solving has always been together. Entrepreneurship has happened to solve the human problems. Today, this is our problem. My job as a mentor is to remind them constantly that we are not the first. First is the environment. Society is the subset of the environment. And we and the businesses are the subset of the society. And as long as we remember what is our position, and as long as we remember that businesses existed even before the money was born through barter, let money not be the end all and be all, and let it not become our master and create a slave out of it. Let money be our slave and direct it towards, it will make sure that what is needed to create a sustainable life for the human businesses, it is used over there. And if you have a sustainable life on this planet, your businesses will automatically become sustainable because they are included in it. That's how I look at it.
That's very insightful. When we hear people who have been involved with mentoring talk, a lot of passion comes out because you deal with people who are actually making the change. And to your point, the point about reverse learning was very important. As much as mentors tend to go to mentees, it's the other way around because that's where you understand that. And your point about entrepreneurship being the problem solver, even though we've created this problem, is completely, very, very true. I was, coincidentally about 3 years back, I was in IIT Madras with Professor Indumati, who's a luminary in this space. And I had to deliver a keynote right after her address, and that was on sustainability. She just put up one slide saying the world, if it progresses like it progresses today, by 2060 will look like this. That was her chart. It was an infographic. You don't even want to look at the numbers there. It was just horrible. I'm worried for the next generation, but be that as it may. My other interest being spirituality, which talks about afterlife and not having a rebirth, I went on stage, started my keynote address on a lighter stage saying, I keep telling people on my other face saying, aim for nirvana, aim for liberation. And people ask me why. Next time somebody asks me why, I'm going to put Professor Indumati's infographic. That's how the world is going towards. So it's a here and now problem that I think many of us are missing. And our call to action out here with the CEOs is, it is a business agenda going forward because sustainability is not just about green, it is about sustainable business growth. And that happens when environment, people and everything is put together. So the biggest takeaway that I had, at least on behalf of everyone from this interaction is, don't do it as a top-down, do it as a culture, impart the skills across the organization. Every organization that I deal with in my world, in terms of sustainability interactions, when I see learning and development being one of their key agenda items, I feel, okay, they're going to get there. So that's a very important aspect. So thank you so much for your insights. I would like to turn my attention to, Sunila Sahasrabudhe. You are in the biotech industry right now, but from my interactions with you, I know that you are not restricted by that. For 20 years, you've been doing this across industries and different aspects of sustainability. If a metro rail is something, a bridge is another, a biotech industry is a third, and so on. I will honestly say in my interactions with you, every time I talk to you, I feel very, very, very uneducated when it comes to ESG. There is so much of richness of knowledge. I'd like for you to, share with our audience some practical things that you've done, which has achieved results from your experience, Sunila.
So thank you, Madhavan, for that broad spectrum question. And to start with, I think I'll just share one small thing with you. I think ESG is nothing but it's a journey. And all of us, believe and agree. So whichever sector we talk about, I think this is looked at, earlier. I mean, not now, but of course, a decade ago, it was looked at like a tick box or a check box kind of a thing. People just thought, okay, I have a black and white paper, so my compliances are right. But nobody took an effort to actually read what is written there. So I think I'm coming from there because I'm last 22 years in this journey of, this subject, and I have seen the transformation in the cultural change, I would like to say, because we've been talking about culture a lot. So now people have, I think, realized, because there are classic examples of failures where people, because of, just having a paper in hand, they thought, they have met the target, but they forgot that if the conditions are not, complied, they may fail. And there are classic examples of, big projects which actually failed. So if I may quote one example, I think Shivaji statue is a classic example. Legal compliances. It was not, in proper shape. So that project is still not taking up. So the point I'm trying to make here is, I think if people have started realizing that ESG is an important aspect of any business that you do, the first thing is set your papers right, that is be legally compliant. And once your papers are right, I think you have already done half your work. And the next step is to comply. And once you comply, I think that's where your risk and the opportunities come into a picture. And I think in all our upcoming standards on ESG, I think risk and opportunities have been beautifully aligned now. So when I talk about a risk in a business, I think if I do a little deep thinking, I actually look that there's an opportunity. So this is, so ESG, if you start looking at from those angles, I think the solution lies there. And as humans, I think the moment we start using our brains, I think we get the solution. And with me, I think I will, of course, be, very happy sharing it, that I have always, with my team and discussion that I've always had with my seniors, looked at any issue or a problem with solution in mind. So one is accept the problem. So your half battle is one, that you have accepted there is a problem. Next, you think about a solution, right? And when you start thinking, I think you not only get one solution, but you actually look for options. So, just cutting the discussion short, I think ESG is a journey where, from my last experience, I've learned that if you have your legal compliances right, if you actually do things right way, I think you can do wonders. And I think the overall approach towards it has changed, and that will actually help, the society at large.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think set your papers right was a pretty succinct way of saying, just get your house in the order and everything else will just follow, right? I think that's a real start point. A number of examples that you shared when we discussed was, how the taxonomy needs to be defined, what does it really mean, then people really know where they are at, and then start driving the initiatives from there. Wonderful, thank you so much for that. I have other questions for the panelists, but just in the interest of time, I would like to, just keep polling the audience in parallel. If a hand goes up, it means that we get your question. If not, you're going to go with my boring list of questions. So, anybody from the audience for the panelists? Remember, the alternative is my boring list of questions. Yeah, go ahead. Please, if somebody can give a mic. Thank you.
So hi, I am Gaurav. I am from Red Bull. Sustainability is an interesting subject for me. So I think you already talked about the zero cost sustainability initiatives. But if you could, anyone in the panel, if you could help, like what are these carbon credits and can they fund the whole sustainability initiatives and how they can fund? If you could throw some light on this subject directly or indirectly, I think it would be a big help for maybe most of us.
Yeah, of course. So I think if you talk about carbon credits, it's nothing but you are actually, offsetting, right? So somebody else is polluting and, I mean, he's just offsetting it by buying it, right? And I think the best is I think big companies have actually earned revenues because of carbon credits. And if you're earning from carbon credits, I think you can always invest it in your weaker areas. That's my very straight answer.
Yeah, good.
May I just supplement it? But you see, the whole issue over here, it may sound a little skeptical, but if we go to the root cause of it, the root cause of it is that we are still trying to measure it with money. So when I am trying to pay for my sins, okay, there is someone who has made some punya karma and I am purchasing it from him. So the net effect of the carbon footprints in the system remains the same. And yes, I make money out of it, and if I'm wise enough to put it back in sustainability initiatives, then it is to some extent mitigating the impact of the carbon footprints. But otherwise, if I am also trying to use it as a money-making option, then in eventual turnout, how much net gain towards the net zero our planet will have is questionable.
And to that extent, to your point, can carbon credit funnel this, in the self-funding part? Yes, I think,
Answer is yes.
that's the point that you're making. So that we can definitely
The
do.
conceptual answer is yes, but ethical, moral, those
Again,
discussions.
it has to be a judicial utilization of what you're earning from it.
My
looking
point
at-
was from that you have to set a journey, and as everybody knows, the budget is a constraint to any journey. So I think I was just thinking from that point of view to start, if it can be self-funded as a start. I know tomorrow a company may portray or may create its brand as being sustainable, and its product will anyways be sold if it can brand itself as being sustainable. So that's the future. I was just
So I'll give you one small practical example how you save when you are on the right track. In the pharma sector, now recently we have seen that there is a change in the fuel that is used in the boilers. So earlier, just 4 to 5 years ago, all the farmers, they were using the furnace oil, right? Subsequently, they moved to gases, right? Now, actually, they have shifted to the biomass or biofuel that you call it. So look at the journey. In the first step, they were actually polluting, but and spending a lot of money. Next step again, gas was a good alternative, less pollution, but of course, money was involved. Now look at the third option. And this is where, I agree with Madhavan that the ecosystem has to be extended outside your boundaries. So we have already started engaging with the farmers, and we all know about the Delhi problem because of the agri waste that they burn. There is a huge pollution problem. Now this is the solution. You make those briquettes, give it to the companies that are using boilers, and I think your net we are all winners in this situation. And now the pharma companies are actually extending their arms. They are getting in touch with the agricultural institutes. Through them, they are actually trying to calculate how much is going to be the agri waste generation. Now look at the classic innovation here. Like somebody's waste is actually getting into use by industry sector, and we are reducing pollution as well. So, I mean, this is how, it's a journey, and it cannot be done even in 1 year, I would say. It has to be strategically planned. And if you look at the, science-based targets also that everybody is talking nowadays, they are always telling you to take short-term targets and long-term targets. So, when you think about your long-term, I think your business has to be aligned with those long-term targets. Because you're not only, bringing your business up, but trying to reduce your emissions.
Absolutely. In summary, I think, if we are able to use this as a flywheel, a start point, and then, with a commitment to kind of take the flywheel up the value chain, I think that's definitely a good start point to have. Anyone else from the audience? Yes, the hand in the back, Murli.
Let me just wanted to have some views. If you really look at about sustainability, there's one thing on compliance, right? Which is what you have the BRSR core coming up and other things. The other thing is genuinely doing best practices, what is really right. And the third element of it is there's also this term of greenwashing, right, which is all about it. So can you guys throw some light around what is it that you're really seeing as genuinely happening in this country? Because even whatever we talked about carbon credits, you may have problems in Mumbai, Delhi, where there's all these AQIs going bad. You may be polluting the environment, but you're saying you're planting trees somewhere in Assam, right? That doesn't solve the AQI problem in Delhi or Mumbai. And just you're compliant by planting some trees and offsetting the carbon credit. So how do you really see is the trend that is genuinely happening to make this a better place to live in a true spirit? Maybe some light around what's happening really around the country.
So let me start. I think the reality is all three of them are happening. Okay. Whether it is genuine work on sustainability, on the entire carbon part, the greenwashing part, that's happening a lot, I fully agree. And of course, compliance, there's a danda of whatever CSR Act and other stuff, so that's also happening. The real thing in this entire thing is, does the company believe in doing something for the sake of society, for sake of themselves? Then it will get into the real sustainability. Then compliance or no compliance, whether you have to do 2%, 2.5%, 0.5%, all those things actually become immaterial. So if one can focus on ensuring, and there are a lot of companies in India, as I speak, who truly believe in giving back to the society. And that's where the culture, and I generally believe culture is always driven from the top and never from the bottom. So if the guys at the top are really committed, you can do it.
And just to add, Vijay, you're absolutely right. I can't have an ice cream and ask Sunila to take a medicine for me. That's not possible. I think it's every company needs to definitely ensure that their organism, as in their ecosystem by themselves, need to be compliant, need to be green by themselves. I think in that direction, while the reality is what Vijay referred to, I think the implementation and the measurement around scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 is not just about what's in your influence, it's also to kind of measure at what level it is. Are you by yourself that, is in your ecosystem that, and so on and so forth. So I think several steps are being taken in the right direction. Coincidentally, when we were launching these ZCTS through our LinkedIn post, a number of comments that came back for us when we announced our launch was, are you guys going to be watching for greenwashing and preventing it? And that's core part of our strategy. So every discussion we are having is having a specific discussion on greenwashing. So I think with some education and with some commitment from the top that Vijay alluded to, this is a phenomenon that's starting to really focus on the true green. But again, I would like to insist, as a business imperative also, other than social commitment. End of the day, we need to have that empathy for the CXOs. They are answerable to their board and they are answerable to the investors. And hence we are insisting that it is a business imperative, there is dollars behind it, but then it is also something that meaningfully contributes back to the society and the environment.
So, since you talked about the key performance indicators, they say that the new definition for KPI and new style of leadership is keep people interested, keep people involved, keep people informed, and keep people engaged. And that's how you drive it around through your entire human capital. So it's not just a job of you or your customers or your stakeholders or your shareholders or your employees or your suppliers. Everyone has to do it together, only then it works for you.
Any other question? Yes, Shankar?
Yeah, Shankar Dharmarajan from AP Moeller Maersk. My question is around this eco-awakening and how are the customers, right? The end customers driving this sustainable business initiative, Madhavan, that you're talking about?
So, Shankar, to be very honest with you, the end customers, they are on varied scales. I see some organizations, including, that's being represented out here, being fairly advanced and fairly committed to that, right? And it's not just about the e-vehicling part of it, it's also about the energy sources, alternate energies on one hand, that's one, all around energy. The second is around business process efficiency, operational efficiencies, because then you're consuming lesser resources. That's also an important aspect of it. The third aspect of it is all in terms of emissions, which is where your question comes from. And the fourth aspect of it is, can I reduce my physical assetization itself by going more digital, right? Whether it is a possibility or a reality, right? Those are the four different areas. So I do see that there are organizations which are really in the tier 1 category, including global giants. I mean, there are at least 3 dozen to 4 dozen companies that are in the $10 billion plus revenue range, which have declared goals and they've declared their results in terms of compliance. So it's for real, it's happening. Whereas there are other companies which are really waking up to the reality because of compliance and everything. It is going to be driven by the end consumers, but it is also going to be driven by the end customers' workforce ecosystem, because this is something that needs to be adopted by them as well. So companies are taking to it, particularly the ones that are dependent on third-party logistics and fleet management and things like that, including yourself. The uptake on that is really high, and that's where the ecosystem comes into play. It's not just you, it's also your ecosystem and who you use. So there is a good bit of measurement that's coming as well. So it is an upward trend, thankfully, but is it really in the matured state? I would say, on a 3 on a 5 actually. Yeah.
I'll just add to this. I'll take the customer as the end consumer. And if you look at end consumer, how many of us actually would buy an EV if there was no subsidy on it? How many of us would actually want to pay 10 rupees extra for something which the company claims that is made by a greener process? The reality of India at this moment is that there are very, very few, I'll say less than 10%, less than 5% people who are actually wanting to do that. Just one more thing which I have seen a change which is happening is, the change is not being driven by the consumers, but the change is being driven by the children of consumers. They force, Papa, can I do this? Can I do this? Can we buy something where my teacher told that this is less polluting, can you do? So I think that change in the society is coming, but to my mind it's very slow and needs to be accelerated. That's how I see it.
A very interesting 30-second anecdotal reference to your point, Vijay. There is a study that is going to refer to at some point of time during this panel discussion, which actually was conducted by one of the universities in the US, and this is global, and it is saying that the generation that is starting to spend now, earn and spend now, is willing to pay anywhere between 11 to 20% more than the cost of whatever they are consuming if they know that the process that is adopted and the product that they're buying is green. So there is an incentive for all CEOs across all industries to start doing that. Actually.
Absolutely.
Do we have time for one more question, or are we out of time? One more question? I had to get the approval of Aishwarya out there, yeah? One more question, yes. One more question from the audience? If not, my boring list of questions is always there. So here is one from my boring list of questions. It's to any one of you. I think the excuse that we are seeing from people, and I'm being very open out here, excuse that if we are seeing from people, this includes CEOs, is my systems are legacy, it's going to take a ton of money for me to modernize that to be able to come up to these greener standards, etc., etc., etc. Obviously, newer systems are more greener and things like that. Do we have examples of the legacy question being surmounted, or is that still work in progress? Because without conquering that, and my friends from Pelican will happily say that they're dealing with equipments that are more than 5 years old, and they're not even equipped to this. But unless that conundrum is solved, we are not going to make progress in this. So is there any practical experience or a journey that we're seeing?
I call it technical debt, okay, which means that, and to my mind, there are two parts to it. One, of course, it's real, and companies do face that problem. But the second also is there's a lack of willingness. Okay, moment a CEO or somebody is really convinced on, say, sustainability, then some of these so-called excuses within quotes would automatically go away. Okay, I would want to go. So people do change their fridge or a TV because that's a 5-star rated. They do that. Otherwise, that same fridge can continue for next 10 years. Who stopped them? Why do you change AC at your home? Because you want to get a 5-star. Because you are convinced that it will help you, number one, save electricity, second, save money. Same thing if the CEO gets convinced that, okay, I really go in and remove this technical debt and old technologies and put in some of those new things. It will, number one, help me in reducing overall costs in the long term. But if we have a very short-term horizon, things won't change.
Wonderful. Thank you, Vijay.
Shall I say something? I recall, a little old case study that I have been using in my classes, and that was of Tata Tea at this Ooty. It is called Kannan Devan tea plantations. All right. I think it's a very, very inspiring case study, and eventually UNESCO also, gave it recognition and requested that everywhere it should be adopted. It was in 2001 when the tea industry was going through depression. And even the giants like then Hindustan Lever, they were not Unilever then, they also sold out Lipton, they walked out of it. They had a financial arm to put up through the depression and go, but they also sold out. Now Tata's, as they are known, I mean, I feel sometimes that CSR word was coined, much later by the business fraternity, but it was invented by Tatas in the world, right? So Tatas were extremely reluctant to, do something like that, because in Ooty, they had the option of selling off that land to the developers and take huge money in return and walk out. But they knew the moment that is done, the construction will begin and entire ecology of that land will be ruined. So the environment will get ruined. Second thing, what would those tea workers do? Because they were illiterate and they knew nothing other than tea plucking. So they were hell-bent on finding a solution to this problem. And what they did is they went about the employee buyout option. So therefore, they sold out their tea to their employees. They made them the shareholders. And for that, they procured a loan of 24 crores from ICICI, for which they stood the guarantor. They retained a 19% stake in the equity, and that was so that they could market and do the branding of the tea, which these illiterate tea workers could not do. And thereby, they minimized their cost, payroll cost completely. Overnight, the labor which was being paid wages was converted into shareholders. So the profitability in the business account, okay, it turned 54% higher. The overheads reduced because the ownership came in, okay. So it's a case of creating a solid business model through innovation, and to make sure that you don't give in to the pressure of money and stay committed to your sustainability agenda. And where has it taken Tata's today to? They have become the global leaders, and now Tata Tea is the global brand. So there are many cases in our own country
Truly
and in this
inspiring
world.
presidency,
yes, to
absolutely.
take
If you have the,
inspiration from.
this if there is a will, there is definitely a way.
Yes, and there are ways of doing it.
Sunila, do you want?
Yeah. So I just wanted to add one small thing here. See, we see a lot of resistance when it comes to legacy. We have been doing this way and we have been successful. We are growing. So the point I'm trying to make is, I think selection of technology when it comes to do that, that also is a very major important thing. And for that matter, specialists like us, we should be able to showcase a variety of options and give them a techno-feasible, assessment of the option. I think that is where it will be very convincing when it comes to the senior management. It's not that people don't want to invest or don't want a change, but they should be able to see the upcoming advancement and the profitability by doing the small investment in the change of technology. So I think that is the bottom line. And people fail there. Generally, people try to do a copycat business. Somebody X, has been doing this, so let me also do that. But I think that's not true. I mean, if we talk about the globe, I think each geography is different when it comes to the environmental conditions. So we should, use our own brains, as Sunil was also saying, and apply the technology right in the place where it is required. So I think that's the bottom line where the human brains can do wonders. And we have been doing this for a lot of our projects earlier when I was in AECOM. Even for a city level project, we were told to have at least 5 options ready. So not only technology, but even its techno-feasible assessment. And how will you develop it for next 25 years? So, I mean, that's where, the perspective automatically comes when you think on those lines.
That's a great point. That's a great point. It takes us back to where we started this discussion. 80% of the last 15 years, business transformations have happened because of technology possibilities and feasibilities, which is a direct call to action to this audience, because this is about deep tech startups on one hand, CXOs on the other. We are saying deep techs, please show us the possibility. And we are saying CXOs, please adopt the possibility and make this a better world. So, great discussion. I know this discussion can go on for a long time and a lot of learnings would come. But more importantly, my sincere thanks is for you to having made this practical. And just to summarize for the benefit of the audience, the key takeaways from what we are learning from out here is 3 different things. 1, think the entire ecosystem, not just yourself. Think the entire ecosystem, because either the ecosystem pushes you or you push them, or preferably both. So when we start our ESG journey, let's think the entire ecosystem, bring the parameters and the KPIs of one another so we develop an empathy for it and solve for it together. That's takeaway number one. Takeaway number two, view it as a business. Try the ESG goals back into business KPIs so we're able to present the right business cases. And third, accelerate through deep techs. There are digital twins, there are AR, VR which create alternate realities. There is business process automation, AI-led automation which takes care of operational efficiencies, business efficiencies. And there is, in terms of adopting the ESG itself, deep tech gives you the alternate options to go forward aggressively. With this, my sincere thanks to the panelists. And my sincere thanks to the audience for getting through the session. Hopefully, we all learned something practically from this, something that we can take. And with this, I would like to end with an appeal.